Hello, wrestling fans, and here I am with another classic pay-per-view review, as this time I will be reviewing WCW Superbrawl II. This event took place back on February 29th, 1992, from the Mecca in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and it was significant for a number of reasons. One, it was the very first WCW pay-per-view of 1992. Number two, it was the very first WCW pay-per-view of the Kip Allen Frey era. Kip Allen Frey had taken over the operations of WCW a month earlier after Jim Herd, or as I've called him many times in the past, Jim Turd, who either quit or was shown the door in January of 1992. And also, a third reason this pay-per-view is significant is the fact that it was the very first WCW pay-per-view in which Jesse the Body Ventura commentated alongside Jim Ross. Okay, throughout the night they would go back and forth with JR and Jesse calling the action, and also you had Tony Schiavone and Eric Bischoff sitting like on a platform away from the ring to take us backstage to Missy Hyatt, who was doing backstage interviews throughout the show. But our first match of the night, we see Flying Brian Pillman go challenging Jushin Thunder Liger for the WCW Light Heavyweight Championship. Brian had won the finals of a tournament back at Halloween Havoc 91, and he defeated Richard Morton to become the very first Light Heavyweight Champion. Pillman lost the belt to Liger on Christmas night 1991 at a house show in the Omni in Atlanta, Georgia, and Pillman had finally gotten a rematch, and here we are. A lot of back and forth at first. Liger was thrown to the corner, but he jumps to the top rope and hits a beautiful moonsault. Liger puts a figure four on Pillman, and while they're in the figure four, they're having a slap fest with each other. They go out to the floor, and Liger hits this forward somersault flip to the floor. They come back in the ring. Brian hits Eric Pillman, which was that slingshot clothesline off the top rope he was known for. Pillman suplexes Liger to the floor. Pillman hit a flying body press off the top rope while Liger was on the floor. Pillman hit a power slam back in the ring. Liger hits a German suplex. Liger hit a power bomb. Liger hit a superplex. The end came when Liger missed a headbutt off the top rope, and Pillman used a prawn, I think it's called a prawn pin, where Pillman had looked like he's about to give Liger a camel clutch, but he had his feet under Liger's arms, turns him over, and Liger's shoulders were down on the mat, and Pillman wins the match to regain the Light Heavyweight Championship, and the two hugged after the match was over. Great opening matchup. And by the way, this crowd was really into this show as it goes along. Next, the singles match, as we see the tailor-made man. For those who don't know, it was one of pro wrestling's biggest ass-kissing cocksuckers, Terry Taylor, as he went on one-on-one with years from being buff, Marcus Alexander Bagwell. Bagwell had only debuted at WCW months earlier, while Tailor-Made Man was just repackaged after breaking away from what I consider the worst faction in pro wrestling history, the York Foundation, or as I called them, the Yuck Foundation, who were acting like business executive rejects, and they came out and their entrance music was similar to the theme of the TV show Dallas. I don't know what really went wrong because Bagwell was too inexperienced at the time. Taylor at this point was already a veteran. But the match ended when Bagwell pinned Taylor with the old Pat O'Connor roll. And after the match, Taylor hit the tailor-made forearm, which he previously called the five-arm, which was a jumping forearm to the jaw. And then Taylor hits Bagwell with a DDT and left him laying in the ring. Next, another singles matchup, we see Cactus Jack go one-on-one with the All-American Ron Simmons. Cactus hit his double-arm DDT earlier in the match. The cameras noticed the Junkyard Dog in the crowd wearing a nice tuxedo. Simmons hit the spine buster on the ramp. Simmons gets the win when he catches Cactus in midair and power slams to win the match. After the match, Abdullah the Butcher hits the ring, who Abdullah and Cactus were kind of teasing a feud with each other, but Abdullah attacks Simmons until the JYD, who again was in the crowd, hits the ring, and they tried so hard to make this look real. JYD attacks WCW security, knocking them down with punches. He hits the ring, and Junkyard Dog, takes off his tuxedo jacket. He hits Abdullah with a headbutt, and taking Abdullah down, and basically helps Simmons to his feet. So I don't know where they were going to go with this, because it looked like Abdullah and Cactus were back together after teasing a little feud, and Abdullah eventually left WCW, and so I don't know where they were going to plan to do with this. Next, a tag team action as we see Vinny Vegas and Richard Morton as they do battle with the Z-Man and Heavy Metal Van Hammer. For those who don't know, Vinny Vegas was one of the characters that Kevin Nash was given in the early 90s of WCW. And Richard Morton, previously of the York Foundation and, of course, Rock and Roll Express fame. On the early going, Hammer press slammed Morton. The Z-Man did a dive onto Morton, who was on the floor. And then he hip tossed Morton on the floor. Eventually, Van Hammer was the face in peril, taking a lot of punishment. Hammer eventually hits Morton with a power slam. Z-Man finally gets the big tag. He power slams Morton. And the end came when Morton threw Z-Man to the corner. Morton charges. Z-Man jumps up, and he uses a sunset flip to pin Morton to win the tag match. But I think Jim Ross was kind of praising Vinny Vegas in this matchup for really standing out, but unfortunately Z-Man and Van Hammer got the win over Vinny Vegas and Richard Morton. Next up was a tag team match, as we saw, representing the Dangerous Alliance, Larry Zbyszko and stunning, years away from being stone cold, Steve Austin with Medusa, as they did battle with the Natural, Dustin Rhodes, and Barry Windham. This all stemmed back at the day of Halloween Havoc 91, when Rhodes and Windham arrived, and Larry Zbyszko slammed Windham's own car door on Windham's right hand, and Windham had to get surgery to get it fixed. And also, I think after that pay-per-view, Zbyszko and Austin had joined Paul E. Dangerously's Dangerous Alliance. So, a bit of a grudge match, seemingly. This is basically a good tag team grudge match, or a good tag team match if anybody really wants, not really learn the continuity of tag team, but if you want to see a really good tag team match, watch this match. Windham and Rhodes got the early advantage. Windham gave Larry a DDT. Austin clotheslined Windham when he tried to pile drive Larry, and that's where the heels took over. Larry eventually gave Rhodes a DDT. Rhodes eventually hits Austin with his own stun gun. The end came when Barry Windham tried to give Zbyszko the superplex, but Zbyszko pushes Windham off. Dustin Rhodes, who was brawling on the floor with Steve Austin, Rhodes pushes Zbyszko off the top rope. Windham hits a clothesline off the top rope and pins Zbyszko to win the matchup. Very good match by both teams. And next, we see Rick and Scott the Steiner brothers challenge two more members representing the Dangerous Alliance, the Enforcer, Arn Anderson, and beautiful Bobby Eaton, who were accompanied by Paulie Dangerously. And this was going to be for the Tag Team Championship. And prior to the matchup, ring announcer Gary Capetta announced to the crowd that Paulie would be banned from ringside for this matchup. And eventually Medusa comes back out and replaces Paulie for managerial duty for this match. Early in the bout, Bobby hits Scott with a neck breaker. Scott eventually retaliated with a belly-to-belly suplex after catching Bobby in midair when he tried coming off the top rope. Rick caught Arn Anderson in midair with that power slam he's known for. Scott gave Bobby and Arn a double Japanese arm drag. Rick double Steiner-lined both Arn and Bobby to the floor. Scott hit the tilt-a-whirl slam or tilt-a-whirl suplex on Bobby on the ramp. Bobby hit Scott with a knee off the top rope. Arn gave Scott a DDT. Arn and Bobby did the rocket launcher. Arn launched Bobby off the top rope, and Bobby landed on Scott, who was laying on the ramp. Risky move for 1992. Rick hit the top rope bulldog on Arn. Arn powdered out of the ring. Arn eventually, this is where the finish came. Arn threw powder in Rick Steiner's face. Rick accidentally grabbed the referee and seemingly tried. It's like I wouldn't say they said he suplexed the referee, but he kind of like threw him out of the way. Scott hit Bobby with the Frankensteiner. Another referee came to the ring, made a 3 count, declared the Steiners the winners, but Nick Patrick came out and tells referee Gary Capetta that the Steiners would be disqualified because Rick put his hand on the referee. Arn and Bobby were victorious by disqualification and retained the tag team championship. Next up was a match for the United States Championship, as representing the Dangerous Alliance, Ravishing Rick Rude defended against Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. What happened was, a month earlier, Steamboat and Sting had defeated Rude and Steve Austin in the main event of Clash of the Champions 18. And after the match, Rude attacked Steamboat, gave him the Rude Awakening, and Steamboat had enlisted the services of a ninja to be in his corner when he has to go out and wrestle. When Rude came out, the fans were eating him up alive, you know. Rude tried to do his usual, what I'd like to have right now shtick. And the fans kept booing him. And, oh, boy, eating him alive. Eventually, the match, Steamboat comes out. The match gets underway. Steamboat hits his classic arm drags and actually did a hangman choke on Rude. He grabbed Rude by the neck and lifted him up. Steamboat worked on Rude's arm, so I guess typical Ricky Steamboat match 101. Rude eventually bounced back, hit a pile driver on the Dragon. Steamboat picked Rude up and dropped Rude's leg over his own knee. Then he put him in a figure 4 leg lock. Steamboat escaped a camel clutch with a reverse electric chair drop where he had Rude on his shoulders and he fell backwards. Rude put a sleeper hold on Steamboat, but Steamboat escaped it. Steamboat put a sleeper hold on Rude, which Rude eventually escaped. Steamboat hit a superplex. Steamboat hit his chop from the top rope. Then he goes to the top rope again, presumably for the flying body press, but the ninja hit Steamboat with a phone, and Rude pins Steamboat to win the match, and the ninja goes running to the back. Now, Missy Hyatt tries to get an interview backstage before the main event, and Missy Hyatt sees the Dangerous Alliance celebrate and sees Paulie Dangerously in a ninja suit. So you figure, obviously the ninja was Paulie that cost Steamboat the match. Then it was main event time, as we see the total package Lex Luger accompanied the ring by Harley Race defending the World Heavyweight Championship against Sting. Now, this all began the previous summer when Sting had a gift box waiting for him, and Sting opened it up, and Abdul the Butcher came out of the box and attacked him. Then, in September of 91, at Clash of the Champions 16, during Sting's match with Johnny B. Bad, another box came out, and after Sting beats Bad, Cactus Jack came out of the box and did a number on Sting. And then, 2 months later, at Clash of the Champions 17, Medusa came out of the box distracting Sting, and then it turned out Lex Luger came out of that box, and turned out Luger was the one that was behind, sending Sting, these men after Sting to attack him and try to take him out of the picture. But, the funny thing was, and I'll get back to that shortly, Sting gained a measure of revenge a month after this at Starrcade 91 when he eliminated Lex Luger to win the first ever Battle Bowl at Starrcade 91. But, when this title match came about and Jim Ross and Jesse Ventura, there was like no mention of the box angle, of the gift box angle, I guess. By the time this match had taken place, I don't understand why. I mean, they kind of like, I don't know, red carded it. I might be using the wrong word, folks. But eventually the match gets underway. Early in the bout, here's a shocker, and I was even shocked because I was watching this pay-per-view for the first time in a while. Sting hits the Stinger splash on Luger, and Luger comes running out of the corner and clothesline Sting. Luger power slams. Luger hit a power slam. Luger tried to put Sting in his torture rack, but Sting avoided it, and he put Luger in the torture rack. Forgot how that broke up. Sting then hits a jumping DDT. Sting put the Scorpion Deathlock on Luger until Lex grabbed the ropes. Luger hit a low blow out of the corner. Luger press slam Sting. Then he hits the original Attitude Adjustment of wrestling, which was the Harley Race pile driver. Sting eventually came back with a flurry of punches. Luger eventually got out of the ring. I think he pulled smash to use a leverage rule to get Sting out of the ring. While the referee was distracted by Luger, Harley Race tried to power drive Sting on the floor, but Sting backdrop Race. Sting climbed to the top rope, hit the flying body press on Luger, and pinned him to win the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. And I'm sorry to say this, folks, this was not really the greatest of main events. I mean, Luger, right after he got pinned, he stood up like nothing. And, the reason, I guess, for that is because after this show, turned out to be Lex Luger's final match in WCW for a few years, because after this show, he had left WCW, and I heard a bunch of stories about this. One story I heard is Luger's contract went up in March of 1992. Another story was that Luger had already fulfilled his obligations, the amount of dates that he was set to wrestle, and Luger decided to do this match just to, do the honors on the way out and put the belt on Sting. Another story I heard was that Luger couldn't handle the pressure of being world champion, or couldn't handle the workload, seemingly. But, yeah, I'll never know. But this was one great show from the early 90s WCW. Now, as I mentioned, this was significant for a few reasons. Another significant reason, this was the end of the Lex Luger's time in WCW back then. But yeah, as I said, Kip Allen Frey, this was the first pay-per-view where he was in charge of WCW, and it's the first pay-per-view WCW did. My understanding, Kip Frey, he actually paid Pillman, Liger, Steamboat, and Rude extra money for working the hardest on the show. Let me see. The crowd, of course, that's another thing that's memorable about this. Even after the show, the show had ended and the credits were rolling, you could hear the people in the crowd still cheering and screaming. And even if as I'm watching it and I see the crowd that was starting to get out of the arena, wow. Obviously, it must have been that memorable of a show for those in attendance. But, I mean, what kind of like, I'm not putting down the show, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't do a review about it. What bothered my mind is they had 3 tag team matches on this show. We had the tag title match. We had Rhodes and Wyndham against Austin and Zbyszko. We had Morton and Vegas against Van Hammer and the Z-Man. I don't understand why the 3 tag matches were put on back to back to back. Morton and Vegas against Hammer and Z-Man, that could have gone on. That could have been in place of could have gone on second or third rather than fourth. And, I don't know. Obviously, let's see. Really, the really good matches on this one, Pillman against Liger, Steamboat against Rude, Steiner against Arn and Bobby despite the finish, Wyndham and Rhodes against Austin and Zbyszko. very good matches. But yeah, I mentioned about Kip Allen Frey. Many said he was a nice guy, but he didn't last too long with WCW. And he was a nice guy, but didn't know the wrestling business, which was always a bad thing about WCW, putting a non-wrestling individual in charge of the company. Granted, I'm sure the roster and everybody were more relieved when Jim Herd, or as I call him again, Jim Turd, quit or was shown the door. But definitely a great pay-per-view. WCW kicked off in 1992, and I'm not sure what pay-per-view I will review next for you folks. So if you know of a good one that happened throughout the months of February or March, because I'm not doing any WrestleMania reviews. There's too many out there on YouTube. People reviewing WrestleMania this, WrestleMania that. So whether it be a WCW, ECW, or a classic WWF pay-per-view, let me know which pay-per-view you want to see me review next, folks. Hope you enjoyed this one.